Welcome to this episode of Open Scripture, where we seek to sharpen the way the church reads her foundational text. So excited you're back with us in this third episode of Genesis 3. My name is Tracy McKenzie. I'm a professor of Hebrew and Old Testament at Southeastern Seminary. And with me today is my wife. You might recognize her from a few episodes ago. And excited to dialogue over this third episode of Genesis 3. By the way, would really appreciate it if you are enjoying these episodes, if they are stimulating your love for God and your appreciation of His Word, your desire to study the Word. Would you please like or subscribe or share? Make some comments. We'll do another question and answer series, and we are anxiously looking for your questions so that we can dialogue over issues related to these chapters and how you're responding to them. So please push like, help us extend the reach of this material. We, of course, have been in chapter 3, and we hit on many things. We've hit on, in episode 1 of this series, we hit on the absence of man. We, of course, hit on the kind of intentional nature. I think one of the main things we saw in the last episode was the fact that the author has woven strategically this serpent, woman, man, man, woman, serpent, serpent, woman, man into the chapter so we can see a reorientation of the authority structure. He went to man first, and then he went to woman. And so those were some of the main points.
Yeah, you actually bring up, I have two thoughts here.
Okay.
I'll start with the first one of one of the things that I want to do is become a better reader. And a question with that is, how do I know if I'm interpreting correctly? It feels like there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. And so what ideas would you have, because I'm an English reader, for helping me make sure I land at the right spot?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I think one of the things that you can do is, read often and read in a community. So we do small group Bible study in our church. One of the things that we have actually on a sister website at Institute for Scripture and Theology is how to do small group Bible study. Mm-hmm. And so we will be promoting that at some point. So that would be one thing.
That also is just a great place for community. When you come together over the Scriptures,
That's
you
right.
see your hearts become unified.
That's right.
Connected.
Yeah, and it's a place where, as we talked last time, we can be real with one another. I would say if you can't be real with the community that you're in, then there's a problem either with you or with the community. But it's a place where we actually can be real. We confess sin. We share our struggles. And again, then we're listening to the Scriptures, and the Scriptures are sharpening and shaping in us. So these are just a couple different things.
I had another thought with that when you just said about this in community and what the Scriptures are doing with hiding. You talked about that a lot last time. Mm-hmm. What do we do when we find ourselves hiding? Because I think this is not just a one and done.
Right.
And it can be easy to think, oh yeah, I've dealt with that, but it creeps back in. So yeah. How do you handle hiding?
Yeah, great question. I think again we can think about this in community. Let me say actually before I come to that though, let me say a couple more words here about Bible study. I think one of the things that I hope you're learning, again, our goal here at Open Scripture is to sharpen the way the church reads her foundational text. I mean, this is the primary thing we really want to do, we're really hungry for, and Beth and I have done this for decades now.
And we've seen it impact our lives in deep ways.
Oh yeah, it's kept us out of trouble, and it's helped us in so many ways. But one of the things I hope you're seeing here is the ways in which the author makes meaning. And sometimes when I say that, people say, what do you mean makes meaning? Isn't he writing and so on and so forth? But here the author is using all of these literary strategies. We've got wordplay, we've got poetry, we've got repetition, we've got literally the absence of man. We've got kind of a structure, an intentional design. in a text. And it's, again, a lot of times when we see that intentional design, if we see intelligent design, we know we have structure, and structure yields intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we see the author break structure, we've also noted intentionality there. So a lot of these things are just becoming familiar with the way the author is operating. And that's one of the things we're trying to do here. And
one of the things that you mentioned in the last episode was the slowing down when you're reading. And I think this is something that I've seen in studying my Bible, is that I read my Bible with a notebook open beside me,
mm-hmm.
just writing notes down
Mm-hmm.
and making observation. That's how you can see certain things
Right.
come up from the surface.
Right.
But if you don't take the time to slow down
Yeah.
and enter in and sit in the text for a while, you're skipping over and
Yeah.
missing a lot of things.
Yeah, it's kind of mysterious, honestly, when you learn a different language. I mean, it's not only seeing word plays and so on and so forth. The learning another language forces you to slow down. And a lot of times in classes where I'm kind of in a text and I'm trying to show things to readers and I ask one of them to read, they just read kind of lickety-split over these things. And again, they're just kind of naturally, because they know English pretty well, and also what they're expecting the text to do. If you remember in the last episode, Nick and I were talking about what we're expecting the genre to do, and we just read too fast. We just need to slow down, and taking notes kind of
Right.
helps us there.
Right. One other thought I had, a question actually, that as I was listening to you and Nick talk about when God comes to man, something I've heard you say before is, it was in verse 3, chapter 3, verse 9, when God calls to the man and he says, "Where are you?" That this is something we can't see in the English necessarily, but if you want to expand on that a little bit, I've heard you say before, the you in this situation is singular.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention that last time. In verse 9, "Where are you?" That's a singular. And then also, really, when he speaks to man in verse 11, "Did you eat?" Or, "From the tree which I commanded you not to eat," right? Did you eat from it? So again, both of these are singulars, just again emphasizing the fact that he came to man
Right,
first.
right.
Let me return, and then we'll turn to the episode. But let me return to your point about really confession. We've kind of hit on this notion in the last episode that we tend to hide. We also kind of alluded to it, if I remember right, at the end of Genesis 2, where we were talking about marriage. And I think I'm just assuming every one of us has, in some sense, failed in our marriage, whether it's blaming our spouse or, again, even in our own mind, committing adultery in our minds as we think about another, person in our marriage, whether it's the man thinking about on other women, or perhaps women do that as well. Again, the hiding, the shame. We could obviously go on in a myriad of examples here, how we experience this.
There's actually coming to mind, I think it's just really easy to see with your children.
Yeah.
Like it's sometimes easy to hide and not see it yourself. Mm-hmm. But
because we get so good at hiding.
Yeah,
our
exactly.
sin,
We lie to ourselves.
Yep.
But if you remember back when our kids were really young, there was a time it was not in this house. I walked up the stairs, and at the top of the stairs, a white wall, black permanent marker all over. Mm-hmm. It was probably a 2 square foot area, just a real pretty picture.
Right.
And in the middle of that picture was a name. And
I can't remember which one of the boys did that.
We'll leave that to be.
Okay, he probably would appreciate that.
Yeah. But when we called him to the scene, it's like, "No, I didn't do that. I don't know who did." It was just so such a clear picture of what we do in our when we're ashamed.
Yeah, our hiding. Yeah. And this is where like I mentioned in the last episode, if you find yourself kind of hiding or running or trying to cover something up, I know a lot of times, it's like we kind of move to a more secret mode, if you will, or we're looking for privacy when we're basically doing something we're ashamed of. If you ever find yourself in those situations, that's a great indication that you need to come into the light. The New Testament, of course, talks about coming into the light and confessing that. And this is where I mentioned last time that you find a person that you trust, hopefully your spouse, or again a pastor, a close friend, somebody in the small group like we talked about a minute ago, that you can confide in, ask for prayer. And again, unfortunately, this is not a one and done. This is a you're going to do this often, and it's embarrassing how often we have to do it. But I'm reminded and comforted by Jesus's words, in the New Testament, that how many times can your brother sin against you? I mean, basically, you forgive him regardless of the number of times, an infinite amount of times, really.
Well, in that illustration that a pastor way back in Kansas days talked about, we're walking around the same mountain towards glory. Hopefully this time around the mountain, we're a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But the reality is we're going around that same mountain.
Right.
We're going to hit the same pitfalls.
Yeah.
And to think that we're going to be able to confess something and never return to it again is not reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very good. Well, hopefully that, again, kind of shapes up this episode. Just we're going to do several things in this episode. First of all, we're going to talk about the pronouncement of judgment on the serpent. And we're going to see in there an indication of why the author has focused on marriage and how this is important in the biblical storyline. Then we're going to talk about the pronouncement of judgment upon the woman. And again, the reminder of really the gospel in this painful reminder and pronouncement upon the judgment upon woman. And then we're going to come to the pronouncement of judgment upon the man. And unfortunately, there are a great many implications there for us today. And then finally, we'll wrap up this episode or the next one with all of the implications of that. So let's turn then to the judgment upon the serpent. I think we just had barely started this in our last episode when we noted, again, this sort of intelligent design in the introduction of characters in this. So why don't I just have you pick it up at verse 14, and
Sure.
You can read verse 14.
And the Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you more than all the cattle, and more than every beast of the field. On your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life."
All right, so again, one of the immediate things, I think I made this comment last time, but the Lord doesn't even give the serpent a chance to respond. In his finding the man and holding the man responsible, he gives the man quite a bit of leeway. The man and God have this conversation, which really hadn't happened before. But he gives man quite a few words, and we have an ongoing conversation there. Then he turns to the woman, and he allows the woman to respond, even though it's shorter. And then here, he doesn't even allow the serpent to respond. He doesn't ask a question to the serpent. Again, this is intentional. He's not going to allow the serpent to respond. Neither should we. We shouldn't be having discussions, again, with God's enemy. And again, I think we see that here, that the serpent was not allowed to respond. Now, the next major point here is it does say, "Cursed are you." So the serpent here is cursed. This is a big deal that the serpent is cursed. And as we discussed last time, I think it's more than just snakes. This is not a mere explanation of why women don't like snakes. Okay? Much more going on here.
And is this the first time we're seeing this word or not?
I think it's the first time we see this word cursed. Now, what is interesting is that woman and man are not cursed. A lot of times this is called the curses, the curse of the garden, or the curse because of disobedience. Well, man and woman are not cursed here. There's judgment pronounced on
Judgment,
them.
okay.
Okay, so there are consequences, but there's not a cursing. And as we play out Genesis 1 through 11 and get into Genesis 12, 1 through 3, and the blessing to Abraham and what that would become to all the earth, this is important. And the serpent is cursed. And again, he's going to face, again, as we think about this as God's enemy, there, of course, will be eternal consequences because of that. So he's cursed. He's cursed more than all the cattle, all the beasts of the field. And there we see again a return to the language of Genesis 2. And then we see that he's going to eat dust all the days of his life. So again, there's this sense here where we're talking about more than just the explanation of a snake having no legs. So he's going to face the consequences of this rebellion forever. And again, he's going to be a lowly creature because of it. Why don't you move to verse 15 now,
Sure.
and we'll make a few more comments on this section.
And I will put enmity, that's a tricky word.
Yep.
I'm sure you're going to address that.
Yep.
Okay, good. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He will bruise you on the head, and you will bruise him on the heel.
Yeah, well, first of all, this word enmity is, again, the idea of hatred. I'm sure, again, probably a different version has a different word here. It's this word hatred. And also in this clause, even though the English didn't have it first, in Hebrew, it's first. And it's first for emphasis.
So could you read it woodenly for us?
Yeah.
I think it would be good to hear that.
Basically, hatred or enmity. You could say hostility. I will put between you and between the woman and between your seed and her seed. So there's a real hatred going on here. And again, notice here that this is not just between the woman and the snake. That's why I'm saying there's more going on here than just an explanation of a woman's hatred for snakes. This is going on between her seed and his seed. So again, very interesting here that the author is, of course, not talking about, little baby snakes. So there's more going on here. There is a seed of the serpent, by which I'm understanding there's a spiritual rebellion going on. And that spiritual rebellion is going to have implications, as we're going to see here in the next chapter, for Adam and Eve's offspring. So it is going to have implications for humanity. It's not merely talking about, the forces of the darker forces of the heavenly places, i.e. demons. Now, also, we see that it is between the woman and her seed. So again, this is also very interesting that we have the word seed here, which is a noun here. It's called a collective noun, which can be a singular, can be a plural, right? It is a collective noun, meaning it can do both of them. And indeed here, this is what's known as a double entendre. It probably has implications for both the plural and the singular. We'll talk about the singular here in a minute, but this just goes to, has implications for that the woman is also going to have multiple offspring.
So this is the first time we've seen seed as well.
I think so.
How else might that be translated, or is seed the right word?
Seed is a great word. I think offspring is probably another way that this is translated. Offspring can also be a collective noun. I think probably normally we would see that as a collective, a bunch of different offsprings. And again, I think both of those work. I do think there's something to be said here for the word seed, because as we might recognize, the author, as he moves forward in these narratives, is going to keep our eyes on the word seed. And I'll say more about that in the next clause. So go ahead and read one more time the next part.
The second part of
of verse 15 here.
And he shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel.
All right. So here we can see that it is talking about a singular. Now, again, this could still be understood because seed is grammatical singular I don't know if you happen to recall the conversation we had about pronouns and their grammatical noun. I won't get into that right now. It could still be understood as plural or singular. But I like the way the English draws this out. He will bruise you on the head, because indeed, this is talking about a particular seed. Now, he's going to bruise you on the head. This is often called the proto-evangelion, that is like the first mention of the gospel. And on the one hand, I think some would see this as maybe an insertion by the reader or by later Christianity, this first mention of the gospel, that, oh, this seed of the woman is way too general, it's way too abstract to actually be thinking about, again, a particular son of the woman who would defeat the serpent. But in actuality, as we read through the rest of the Pentateuch, and as we see the intentional nature of these texts, again, there's no detail that is lost on the author here. And guess who's going to be the seed of the woman in the upcoming episodes? Well, first of all, we get Cain and Abel, where we see that things go awry.
Natural born children.
Right, natural born children. Then we see this. Then we see the next seed of the woman, who is a particular son who's given a name. His name is called Seth. Seth's son is actually when men began to call upon the name of the Lord. From Seth, then we eventually, this is kind of a preview of Genesis 1 through 11, we eventually get to Noah. Noah finds grace in the eyes of God. Noah gives us a seed, that would be Shem. Shem gives us a seed, that is Abraham. Abraham gives us a seed, Isaac. Isaac gives us a seed, Jacob. Jacob gives us a seed, Judah.
And you're just watching it tick down.
Exactly. And here we are at the Lion King, who would come in the last days, and the obedience of the nations would be his. So again, in the Pentateuch,
that's just as beautiful to bring it all together.
Yeah. There's no question that the author of the Pentateuch has a particular seed in mind, and he's the Lion King, who would, of course, defeat all of Israel's surrounding enemies, all of the enemies of God, and the nations would basically be his.
I just want to say that if the listener is just joining in, they could go back and listen to when you first started, because the Lion King series would really help to bring that overview of how this is all fitting together with the seed.
That's right. One of the things we talked about in that Lion King series was we were trying to give a kind of a larger panoramic of the Pentateuch, so that then we could fit these smaller literary units into basically the shaping of this book and the ordering of these narratives in order so that we could find meaning here. And one of the things we're doing here is we're finding coherence. So notice that in Genesis 1, it related to the whole land. Genesis 2 obviously relates to Genesis 1 because of, again, the sixth day, the man and the woman, again, the issue of land. We find the garden. We now know that the garden is really the same place as the promised land in Genesis 15. That was one of those things. Genesis 3 is unpacking what happens when marriage happens. That is, again, a seed of a woman. And Genesis 4 is going to do, again, the same thing. The man and the woman have children. Of course, there's conflict. And again, we just go right on down the story. So we see this coherence between these narratives and how it fits into the overall purpose of the author. That is telling us about the Lion King, who would have a people and would have a place for them to dwell, again, in the last days and indeed for all eternity. So this is exactly how the author is getting to the gospel. So what I would like to do is think about the gospel, that is the good news of the author right here in verse 15. We'll just take a minute here and think about how this is the way that the author is getting to the gospel. We commented that, hey, he could have gotten to John 3:16 in chapter 2. But what's he do?
He brings about marriage.
He brings about
so
marriage.
So that he can bring about the seed.
So that he can bring about the seed. And notice the seed is going to defeat the serpent that is God's enemy.
What hope that gives.
I know. What hope in the midst of, again, the struggle,
The hiding, the being afraid.
That's right.
The covering up.
That's right. We can see here that that hiding and even that conflict is not going to be forever. And indeed, God had a plan. This is not plan B, by the way.
That's a really good point.
This is not plan B as God's like, okay, I created man and woman. They're in this perfect place. And I made a mistake, so I got to fix it. So I'm going to do this. No. The gospel, the coming of the seed of woman, was God's plan from the beginning. Remember also that the author's at the end of this unit, right? He's at the end. He's all the way over in Deuteronomy 33, Deuteronomy 34. So, and he's intentionally crafting all of this. He knows the trouble that not only Adam and Eve are going to have, he knows that eventually Israel's going to have this trouble, and they're not going to be able to obey either, of course. This is all a reflection of that. And the seed of the woman is the answer for Israel. It's the answer for Adam and Eve. And again, of course, it's the answer for us as well. So I really can't stress strong enough that when you begin to look at this as an intentionally crafted unit, this is the gospel. This is the gospel.
And I think, just to reiterate, to slow down, take your time and see these things.
Yeah.
Because the impact is powerful.
Yeah, very powerful. One other implication that we can draw here from this, and we talked about this in the Lion King series as well, but notice that the victor here is a seed of the woman. So that means he's man, right? He's human.
He's human.
So this also is going to give us hope, right? This is not some other, or not merely some otherworldly being that we can't relate to and that can't relate to us. This victor is going to be human. We also talked about in the Lion King series how he's also the Most High. So he's God, he's the Most High, and here in this portion, we see he's man, and he's going to be able to relate to us too much. So we're
both and, even though it's confusing, that has so much hope.
Yep. So much hope. I should also mention that, of course, that it won't take us long. Once we get beyond the Pentateuch, we could not only be talking about the seed of Judah, but you know who in the rest of the Old Testament story, who's the seed of Judah? This would be David. Right? And David is made this promise about a son of his who would be a son of God, and God would be a father to him, right? And so again, it really goes back right to the same issue of a man and a God, this man God, if you will. And again, the rest of the Old Testament keeps its eyes on this promise to David, even after David dies, and David acknowledges, hey, I was not the seed, right? But there is one who is coming after me, who is my seed, who will be. And so, again, we see the rest of the Old Testament story is about this seed of David, seed of Judah, seed of Abraham. And again, we leave the Old Testament with the hope of this seed who would restore God's people. And boom, the first page is the New Testament. We see the seed of David, and in Matthew's genealogy is the seed of David. Then over in Luke's genealogy, he traces the genealogy back to the son of Adam, who he says is a son of God. So again, we're right back here to really the entire Old Testament story.
It's like a tapestry of grace that you're starting to pull a little thread out. And when you watch it unravel, it's all connected.
That's right. It's all connected.
It's just one beautiful story.
That's right. Well, let's turn then to the curse of the woman here. We're going to run out of time, but let's turn to the curse of the woman. Or I'm sorry, not the curse of the woman. The pronouncement of judgment on the woman. Thank you. All right, verse 16. Verse 16.
To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children. Yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you.
All right, so here we have a mere 13 words. We noted that the curse, the pronouncement of judgment on the serpent, was 33 words. Here's a shorter one, 13 words. Notice that the woman is not cursed. There is this pronouncement of judgment, and the judgment has to do with the pain that she's going to experience in conception and basically in giving birth. So twice, there's two words here. They're both the same word, pain. They're from the same word root. And I will greatly multiply your pain and your conception, and then in pain you will birth sons. So this is where, again, we have this pronouncement of judgment. But I kind of want to say here that this idea of childbearing is really still the point here on this pronouncement of judgment. So woman here is basically going to be saved, if you will, through the bearing of sons.
Okay.
So that even, I would say, every time a woman gives birth in pain, it's basically a reminder of the gospel. And I suppose not only that, but again, the monthly reminder for a woman every time. It's basically should be something to think back upon, okay, the birthing of a particular son.
A source of life.
A source of life, right? Which is that source of life, interestingly enough, is going to be the words Adam uses to name his wife here at the end of this chapter.
Wow.
She's going to, that's what Eve means.
Oh,
living.
the mother of living.
Yep, exactly. So I actually think this is what Paul's talking about in 1 Timothy 2:15, where he makes some kind of, it's almost an enigmatic statement. Women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in sanctity and obedience or something like this. I think he's got his eyes right here on this pronouncement of judgment on the woman. Because I also want to say here, we've still got a little bit more to do with this particular pronouncement of judgment. But I just want to say here, and again, maybe you can speak to this. I should probably be careful even speaking to this. But, woman is, in a sense, cast in a highlighted role here. I mean, if you think about it, she was the character at the beginning of chapter 3. Now she's, again, receiving the pronouncement of judgment. And her pronouncement of judgment has to do with the bearing of children. And if you think about this, man cannot bear children.
Exactly. It's a really good thing to draw that distinction. Yeah. We live in a society where we're trying to blur that line, and it's not a line that can be blurred.
It's not a line can be blurred, and it's not a line that should be blurred. And I do think this is kind of countercultural. I mean, I shouldn't be afraid of making statements, so maybe I won't be. But you take over for me if you need to. But man can't do this. Only women can birth children. And so this is like in a sense, this is woman's superpowers, right? That only she can do this.
Just feels like a little sitting on a pedestal, so to speak.
She's cast in a highlighted role here to a certain extent, and she's special because this is only a thing that women can do. And I just think from our cultural perspective, it's almost like a shameful thing that women have to have kids.
Right. Or that they have to deal with the monthly cycle. That's right. And I think, again, from the biblical perspective here, woman is like superwoman. If you don't have woman, you don't have the gospel. You don't have the seed of woman. Wow.
And again, every birth that we would say is an indication of humans still being birthed in the image of God is a reminder of the true image of God, that is Jesus Christ, who is the Savior of the world. So big deal here, really.
Okay, so I have a question. I'm thinking about a couple friends, a couple who can't get pregnant.
Okay.
And a friend who is serving overseas who would love to be married. And what do you say to those women?
Yeah. That is a great question. And I would like to put that question off until we reach the end of the chapter.
Sure. Sure.
I think it will come back up. If it doesn't, just remind me when we get to the part where it's, Eve is called,
Okay.
Chava, because she was the mother of all the Chaya. Bring me back to this question.
Okay.
Because I think there's a very important answer that
Good.
isn't going to satisfy everybody, but it does at least tell us what the issues
But it touches on it. Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's turn to the last statement here again in verse, where are we at? Verse 16.
Yes. This is super confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So please bring
Okay. I'll do my
shed
best.
some light on this. Yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you.
All right. So again, it would be interesting, I suppose, listeners, you guys can do this. You can pull in the different versions here, but I think in the final analysis, this is going to be fairly easy to unpack. There is a question, and to your man or your husband is your desire. What does that mean? Does she just long to be with him, like in a happy way? Or is it kind of in a controlling way? Then also, what does it mean that he will rule over you? Is this kind of like he's lording it over her? This is a kind of a taskmaster type of thing. This is going to be part of the fall. She's going to try to usurp his authority. He's going to unjustly rule. Before I give my answer, it is interesting that the sun, moon, and the stars, quote unquote, rule over the day and night. So same word.
Okay.
And that's not negative.
Okay.
So this doesn't necessarily have to be negative. However, if we read Genesis 4:7, we see the exact same description. Can you turn to that and just read that real quick?
If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door.
And here's the part right here.
And its desire is for you, but you must master it.
All right. So that's the exact same compound sentence. So it's not just a word. It's not just a phrase. It's not even just a clause. It's actually two clauses. And the words are all the exact same as these two clauses here. So again, given the literary fabric of this text, there's no way that this can't be recognized by the author. So I think we can see from that statement, which is about sin crouching behind the door. We'll say more of that when we get there. Sin is trying to rule over Cain. So what will be interesting is to see who is behind the sin. All right. But Cain should master that sin. And of course, he doesn't. So in the same way, this is probably pejorative. I would say it's negative. Woman is probably going to try to usurp or control. I think that's in a negative. I think the easiest way to understand it, based on Genesis 4, is kind of a negative. And the man, should master or rule or kind of govern, right? But he's going to be passive. He's going to be absent, just like he was early in the chapter. And because of his passivity,
So there's going to be a tension.
there's going to be tension. That's right.
And it would make sense, this thought, if this is in the judgment part for woman.
That's right.
But I think it really helps to keep in mind the sun, moon, and stars.
Yeah. So here we see, again, one of the implications of the disobedience of man and woman and their rebellion is we see here the broken relationship. Again, never go into a friendship or entering a church or even marriage thinking that things are going to be perfect. These are broken relationships because we are broken people. And the scriptures speak to this in the first marriage where things should have been proper and good. Well, join us in our next episode where we continue to see how the scriptures are for us and about us.